All right, guys. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Arte podcast. I'm Grant Allen. I'm the CEO of Arte Sports Performance, and I've got a really exciting guest here today, somebody who I've known for a very long time through my mom, actually, and is just a fantastic guy and a leader in all ways in life. And so I also wanted to bring on somebody who's a really powerful figure and a very good voice for fathers, being that Father's Day was on Sunday. And so Marc's a great father, and I've seen it with his daughter as well. And so I'm really, really excited to have Marc Bailey on today. So Marc, how's it going, man?
Good, Grant. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for
Yeah,
the opportunity.
absolutely. Well, we're so happy to have you on, man. It's been great, and it's good to reconnect with you because I haven't seen you for a while. So that's even better. We're kind of just two birds in one stone here.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah, so tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're from. If you want to start at birth and go all the way up, or you want to start 10 years ago, whatever, man. Just
Okay.
tell us all about you.
Well, lifelong Nebraskan. I've never lived anywhere else outside the state's borders. Born in Falls City, Nebraska. My father was a high school football coach, along with his three brothers were all high school football coaches. And we moved to Omaha in the late 60s. My dad took a job at Omaha Central. He was an assistant football coach there, became the head coach. 72, and so I grew up most of my days in Omaha, and went to Kearney State to school. I went to Omaha Berkeley High School, went to Kearney State to school for college from 81 to 85. Turned around, and when I finished up, graduated, moved back to Omaha. Got into pharmaceutical sales and also medical sales. And my daughter came along in 1991. And she got to be about 3 or 4 years old, and Dad was on the road. I was covering 6 states, making good money, enjoying it, but I was gone 3 out of 4 weeks during the month. And I'd leave on a Monday and come back on a Friday, and my wife would tell me all the different things that Aaron is doing now or did now. And it just got to the point that couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't handle traveling that much and being gone. So I looked for something more local. I talked to a recruiter, and he said, have you ever thought about office furniture? And I said, going from medical sales and, being in surgery 3 or 4 days a week. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think office furniture is really the way that I want to go. But after pursuing me for about 6 months, I ended up taking a job with Steelcase, which is a leading manufacturer of office furniture in the country. And I've been in that industry ever since. I live in Kearney now, back in Kearney. Been here for 13 years and work for All Makes Office Interiors, an office furniture dealer based in Omaha. We have 4 locations: Omaha, Lincoln, Des Moines, and our newest location is right here in Kearney. So I work as our regional branch manager here.
Very nice. Very Michael
So
Scott
yeah,
of you.
it's kind of in a nutshell. That's kind of me.
Awesome.
Married. I have a daughter that just got married a couple weeks ago to a great guy, and so empty nesters now, and but they still live here in town, and she followed in the lineage. She's a teacher as well, and so yeah, life is good.
Very good. Very good. Now, I was just saying the branch manager is very Michael Scott of you. Are you would you say that you're like Michael Scott in a way?
I would not. That's a great point. It's kind of funny because I'm somewhat of a hybrid out here. I mean, most furniture dealerships have installation crews, they have designers, we have project managers, we have salespeople, we have managers, and I have all of that support staff, but they're in Lincoln and they're in Omaha. So I am basically my own regional manager out here. I manage myself for the most part. So
Right.
I handle I wear a lot of different hats throughout the week, whether it be designing a project, selling a project, doing warranty work, some minor installations, kind of do a lot of it. So, and
Yeah.
yeah, Michael and I we have differing personalities, I guess. I'm not quite that absorbed in myself.
Right, right. Let's talk about let's kind of switch gears here a little bit. Like I said in the beginning, I've always really looked up to you as a leader, growing up as a kid, and I mean, geez, we've known each other for probably close to 15 years.
I would say, yeah, at least.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
growing up, you were always a really good role model for me and somebody I looked up to. And I think that a common theme with people who are very successful and people who, first of all, so with this podcast, I didn't really mention that in the beginning, but what we're doing, if I haven't told you already, is I want to really bring on people who are leaders in their own right, and leaders who are, I guess you would call them average Joe leaders. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Where it's very
Mm-hmm.
much, I feel like the state of Nebraska is very, working class, and I have a lot of very working class friends who are leaders in their own right and who are successful in their own right. And I consider you to be one of those people. And so, but the thing that I find that's very consistent with people who are successful and people who exceed their potential and people who go up and above are people who have daily rituals and people who have daily things that they do consistently over and over and over again. And even though it's really boring, and this is something that I've been preaching with some of the clients that I have, is you have to get past the boring. You have to get past the daily mundane bullcrap every single day that you have to do, because you have a broader picture and you have a broader scope of where you want to go. And so I was just wondering if you have any daily rituals that you have, that you do every single day, or if there's something that is like a must for you. Just kind of talk about that.
I do. You have to, first off, you have to carve out time for yourself. No matter how busy you are, no matter how many things you have on your plate, you have to carve out time for yourself. What I normally do is I normally carve out 2 hours a day. The first one is when I first get up in the morning, my daily ritual is I make my coffee. I've got the news on. I'm going through emails. I'm looking at my calendar, my schedule for the day. I'm preparing myself for the world, basically. And then the other hour that I carve out is to be able to stay physically fit. Nine times out of 10, that consists of going to the gym, my local YMCA here, and exercising. Now that the weather's nicer, a lot of times my daughter and I will hop on our bikes and we'll go on a 20-mile bike ride down to Fort Kearney on the trails. We go to UNK. We run, like you and I were discussing earlier, and do some of those things. But those are kind of my two things that I have to do. I have to carve out those 2 hours. There are times during the day when it's 6:30, 7 o'clock, 7:30, something like that by the time I leave the office. It makes for a long day. But I still try to do my best to get that 1 hour of exercise in. It's a great way to decompress at the end of the day. Lift hard, get those endorphins popping out, and it just helps to kind of, you get on that, you get that physical and emotional high throughout the day, trying to put out fires or selling or whatever it might be, and it's just a nice way to kind of calm yourself down and relieve a lot of stress by, pushing heavy things around, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. Clanging the weights. You got to do
Banging the weights.
Yeah. So, kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about is obviously you're an entrepreneur and you're a businessman. And so what would you say, you've had a lot of experience and a very diversified, experience throughout the years. What would you say is the number one thing that you would consider when starting a business? If you're kind of fresh out, what would you say then it is the number one thing to really understand and to take into consideration?
You got to be willing to put the time in. To be an entrepreneur, start your own business, or even just be successful working for somebody else, you've got to be willing to put the time in. And, long hours are part of the job. Working on weekends a lot of times are part of the job. You have to do what you have to do to be successful. And if you've got, you can't go golfing with the boys Wednesday afternoon at men's league or men's day.
Right.
Or you got to make some choices, especially early on, until you get to the point that you're becoming successful and you're starting to get some traction and to get going.
Right.
The other thing that I would say is you are never above anybody else, or your position is never better or greater than anybody else's. You should never consider yourself above anyone else from a subordinate standpoint. You need to empathize and work with everybody. From, in my profession, I get down and dirty with my installers. I'm out installing product. I'm not out just strictly selling it and letting somebody else handle it and passing it off. The more you understand about other people's positions makes you more successful as a manager, as an employee, and also as a business owner. So you need to kind of know every facet of what's going on. And you can't really do that until you get down in the pits a little bit and do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought I'm so happy that you brought up those 2 points, because I feel like a lot of people get so caught up in the logistics of everything. And what you brought up wasn't logistics at all. It was more so just the grind of what you have to do and the mindset that you have to develop to get into that situation. And like you said, with the hard work and then actually applying it and whatnot. And so, I think so many people get really caught up in the like, well, my content's got to be great, and my everything's got to be up to snuff. And it's like, well, really, you just have to be willing to put in the rest of the work. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Instead of focusing on the really, really tiny like things that probably don't matter that much, focus your time on the work, and the results will come. And so I think that one of the best quotes that I've ever heard is always the work comes before the belief. And so we talked about this before, on a weight loss journey or whatever it may be, or on a business journey, in a relationship, like the work will always come before the belief. And so all of the logistics stuff, that'll fall into place, but the work is what is the most important part about it. And so
you hit the nail on the head earlier when you talked about, the state of Nebraska. We have a strong work ethic. If you listen to Dr. Tom Osborne anytime, he'll always mention that somewhere along the line about just the strong work ethic of the people that live in Nebraska. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that have made, his athletic program very successful over the years. Just hard-working people that are willing to put in an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. And, and that's just basic, simple, business 101.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you got to do it.
Agreed. Yeah. What would you, kind of a good transition here. So how would you define success? It's relative to the individual, and it's incredibly subjective in the sense that, like, my definition of success wouldn't be the same as yours, and yours wouldn't be the same as mine, and to the next person. And so what is your definition of success for Mark Bailey?
Well, from a personal standpoint, watching my daughter grow up and being a successful teacher, watching her in her classroom and how the kids respond to her, and knowing that a lot of the things that made her what she is today are just teachings and learnings that her mom and I were able to instill in her. So that, for me personally, that's a big success. From a business standpoint, it's just feeling good about yourself. When you come at the end of the day, did you work hard? Did you try to accomplish as much as you could? You lead by example. You just need to I guess just be yourself. Feel like if you feel like you've accomplished something during the day, set some realistic goals for yourself. If you're able to achieve those goals, make your goals higher next time. Right. And there's a number of different ways. I mean, from a personal standpoint and a business standpoint, but feel good about yourself at the end of the day. That's probably the most important thing. Love yourself before you can really start to love others.
Yep.
Kind of tangent there, but
yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great. So leading, up to that is good, really good advice. What's some of the best advice that you've ever received?
Great question. Growing up, as an athlete and being involved in an athletic family, a coaching family, athletics were always a big part of my life. That's what our world revolved around. And so athletic quotes and things like that have always been important. But I think a lot of times athletics can transition well into the business world. My high school football coach once said, Mark, athletics can be a very cruel thing sometimes. And just like in business, they can be, and the other one that kind of goes right along with that is, again, back to Tom Osborne. Somebody asked him one time, I think it was before the 93 Orange Bowl, I believe it was, when they played Florida State. And either him or Tommy Bowden or Bobby Bowden was going to come out of this with a national championship. And somewhere along the line, a reporter asked him, Coach, when's it going to be your turn? And his response was, you never take turns in athletics. And so those two kind of things, I think, really kind of go together. I mean, you get, you earn everything you put into it. The old adage, you get into it what you put out of it, or what you get out of it what you put into it. Yep. There are no taking turns. You've got to compete all the time, whether it be in business, whether it be in athletics. And at times there's going to be defeats. There's going to be personal defeats. There's going to be business defeats. And it's those are the cruel things that happen. And you need to be able to, how do you adapt to that? And how do you make yourself better?
Right. Absolutely. Well, this is going to be my last question. This isn't one that I sent you. So this is going to be a total surprise one, but it's the most important question that I feel in the world to ask anybody. All right. So if you were to put on your dream concert, all right, you get 3 bands, all right, to put on your dream concert. All right. And you can bring original bands back from the dead. So you could have like the original Beatles if you wanted to. All right. You get 3 bands. What are the 3 bands that you put in?
Wow, that's a good one.
And you can have individual artists as well. So it doesn't just have to be a band.
Right. As much as I like Van Halen, I would never do the Spicoli thing and blow my money from saving Brooke Shields and bring Van Halen to play at my birthday party. So I don't know if you've ever seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but that's
of course.
At the end. First would be Frank Sinatra.
Of course.
Love Frank Sinatra. My daughter and I danced to Fly Me to the Moon at our wedding here a couple of weeks ago. Gosh, I do like the Beatles. I'm a big Jimmy Buffett fan.
Yes.
Love Jimmy's music. I would probably have Jimmy would be a second. And, the third, always been a big Garth Brooks fan too. And and I've seen Garth a couple of times in concert, and I think those 3 could really hit it off. A lot of higher energy, a lot of class. Yep. I think that would be my 3.
That's awesome. Have you ever been to a Jimmy Buffett?
Really, not bands necessarily, but 3 actual individual performers.
That all works. Have you been to a Buffett concert?
I have. I've been to a couple of them.
Yeah.
Both in Kansas City. One was at Bonner Springs, which is the outdoor amphitheater.
Yep.
And then the second one is at the Sprint Center here about 3 years ago.
Very nice. When I was down at EXOs, so we lived, if you've ever been down in that area, it's just all like freeways. It's all freeways. And then there's like little off ramps and stuff. So we lived down in this little community, and then we were right by FC Dallas was where the facility was, and then where our apartment was too. So we were maybe like a mile-ish from the facility and FC Dallas. Well, this was on a Friday. I had gotten up at like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., whatever it was, to go get into work. And I start driving out, and there's cars all the way from FC Dallas and, campers and trucks and all this stuff all the way back, like a mile and a half back to the freeway. And I'm like, what is going on? But they're all like parked on the side of the road. I'm like, what is this? And so I get up close to it, and there's all these people wearing these parrot head hat deals. I'm like, what the heck is this thing? And I'm telling you that those next 2 days, it was like that I mean, in that entire area, it was all Parrot heads. And so
They are his fans are they're a cult. They
I have
are a cult.
never seen anything like
Um,
it. I was like, oh my gosh.
First one I went to was in Bonner Springs, and that was probably 15 years or so ago. And it was outdoors. It was in March. It was spring, but it was still chilly. But there were guys dressed up in grass skirts
Yeah.
with coconut shell bras and the great big Chiquita banana, headdresses on. And I was just in awe. I mean, I always liked his music prior to that, but it was just kind of this Zen moment where it's like, everybody was all in sync with each other.
Right.
And I just love his fun music. It's something you can always sit and listen to at any given time, feel good about yourself. I listen to it a lot in the office, just kind of have it as background music. And, but yeah, it's crazy. He used to come down to the West End in downtown Dallas and would always give outdoor concerts down there. It has for years and years.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, I'm so happy that we got to have you on and introduce you, because you've been such a huge influence in my life and have helped mold me into the person that I am today, just by the example that you set. So I really do appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to have you again.
Definitely, Grant.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep.